bitches, hoes, men, women, children, whoever you are, everyone's welcome to your boy Peter here, aka Peter Freakout 10, baby. Bring you guys another episode of the Movie Review Show, where the good movies are always reviewed. Okay, back into our movie review. Now, in today's episode, we're getting back into the sports genre. And today we're talking about one that I don't know how to introduce, because this is one of those films that, in all honesty, I kept hearing about over and over again. I kept seeing it be advertised. I kept seeing the trailer of it to a point that it just got annoying to watch. And I was unsure of what the film was going for. I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be a sports film or a raunchy comedic sports film, because the trailer made the film seem a bit uneven in tone. It almost reminded me a bit of Basketball, which that film at least kind of got the tone down from the trailer as opposed to this. But after thinking about it, I thought, what if I got to lose? I could use some laughs from it. And what film is that, you may be asking? That film is none other than Varsity Blues. So, were the previews right? Well, there's only one way to find out. Grab your football gear, grab your Gatorade bottles, grab your girls with the best hot fudge sundae bikinis, and let's talk about Varsity Blues. Now, Varsity Blues, this was a film made in the year 1999, and this is directed by a guy named Brian Robbins. Now, Brian Robbins, this is actually a guy who started as a writer and director on episodes of Nickelodeon shows like Head of the Class, All That, and Kenan and Kel. He has directed before this, though. His first feature was actually Good Burger. But in order to talk about the production, we need to go back, way back to the 80s. Most specifically, 1984, where we meet Peter Iliff, who later on would go on to write the fantastic action movie Point Break. But before all that, in 1984, he had come across an article about a high school football team and the pressure the students faced on the field in Texas and how football had defined them in that town. He was inspired by the book Friday Night Lights and decided to take that whole incident of what he read and take a script that he wanted to do about that team and football in general into a comedic route, as he wanted to distinguish his script from that book. It was around the time Imagine Entertainment had been founded by Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, and the president of production at the time there, Tova Later, had come across the script, and despite liking it, she passed on it in the company because also they were trying to get a Friday Night Lights movie made, which never materialized. It was a bumpy ride to get someone behind the film, so much so it was optioned out 6 times. One of those times, the person who he was trying to contract it to ended up filing for bankruptcy, and the script ended up going to bankruptcy court. Once that was finished, though, it landed in the studio of Paramount and its executive, who really took a liking to the script, being himself an offensive guard in his football team during high school. Tovia helped get a deal going between Peter and the Paramount studio, to which they agreed to. The only thing left to do was find a director. Their original intention was actually to get Daniel Stern of the Wonder Years and Home Alone 1 and 2 fame to direct, but he wanted to rewrite the script, and because of that, there was a huge falling out where he ended up being fired. The team then decided to have a new face tackle this movie, and they came across Brian Robbins. He had just finished directing Good Burger and was shown the script, but would only do it if rewrites were done, as despite liking the comedic approach, he felt there should be a bit more of a sense of drama to the story. Thus why John Gattens of, I shit you not, Leprechaun 3 and Witchboard 2 fame was brought in to fine-tune the script. While that was going on, Imagine was still trying to get Friday Night Lights greenlit, and Brian Grazer even tried calling Brian Robbins into directing Friday Night Lights, to which Brian refused. Well, Robbins refused, I should say, because they're both named Brian, let's be honest here. But once Robbins agreed to the script and rewrote it, Paramount greenlit the film with a budget of only $16 million. The movie was shot in Texas, and when shooting the film, Robbins' intent was to make the film as close as he could to the excitement of Friday Night Football, while he also worked with cinematographer Charles Cohen, known for capturing live sports events, and a sports coordinator, Mark Ellis, who had also worked on various football films, those being The Program and The Waterboy, to make it feel like you were in the actual game. So they organized the football scenes like an actual football game, creating a playbook and camera plots before they started shooting. Those scenes were shot on location to make them look as authentic as they could to real-life football. Since some of them were actually going to be playing football, the actors also had to go to football practice to learn how to play football. It took a toll on some of the actors, though, as a couple of them did end up getting hurt during production. And during the games, they actually got actual announcers in the area to work with them, along with a couple of crew members appearing in the films in particular moments. In particular, the football coordinator, Mark Paul Ellis. Shooting lasted for a specific amount of time, and the movie was released on January 15, 1999, President's Day weekend. It opened to #1 at the box office, grossing over $17 million in its first weekend alone. It would hold the #1 spot for 3 weeks until it was dethroned by She's All That, which is the next review coming. It went on to gross $50 million, though, making it a huge hit for the company. On the reception side, though, the film received mixed reviews from critics. On Rotten Tomatoes, it carries a 45%. Critics praised the film for its acting, being well made, but criticism came from some of the critics who didn't like the juvenile tone and felt it was cliched. Roger Ebert even awarded the film 2 stars, admitting that there are points in the film that make for a good movie, but he felt not all of it came together. On the audience side, though, it is a bit different, because on that side, it's liked a lot more with a 79%, and on IMDb it is a 6.5 out of 10. So the audience seemed to know what they were getting into when they saw this movie. Now, after seeing the trailer so many damn times and deciding that I was going to give it a C, I gotta say, walking out, I was pleasantly surprised. I liked the movie a lot, and I had a fun time watching it. And I mentioned basketball, and it does in some areas have that sort of problem as basketball, most specifically in the tone, which I'll touch upon later. But even there, it isn't as badly handled as it is in that film. And even with that said, I do feel all around with this film, the tone is better handled. And because of that, I liked the film for what it was. I'll explain why later, though. But with the cast in this film, you got James Van Der Beek as the lead. This is a kid from Dawson's Creek and I Love You Not. You have Amy Smart, who a year before this, or a couple months before this, was actually in Dee Snider's Strangeland, which I already reviewed. Ally Larder from Drive Me Crazy. She's also in Final Destination, which I will check out because I think that film sounds interesting. Speaking of Good Burger, you actually got Ron Lester. He was the fat dude in Good Burger. He was the guy with the spatula and the fly flew on his head. He hit himself with the spatula. That's Ron Lester. Paul Walker from Pleasantville and also in She's All That, which I will tie into the next review. John Voight, who a couple years before this was in Anaconda. He was also in Deliverance and Midnight Cowboy. You also have Scott Caan, James Caan's son. He was also in Enemy of the State. But getting into the film, the plot is basically we meet this kid named Mox, played by James Van Der Beek, who's a part of this high school football team in this Texas town where football is seen as the top priority to not only the residents, but also the coach Bud, played by John Voight. And despite helping the team win and getting close to the championship, he still lives in the shadow of the starting quarterback Lance, played by Paul Walker. But he's one of those guys who doesn't look at football as a top priority as he's working to get a scholarship to college as well as getting a relationship going with this chick named Jules, played by Amy Smart. But all that changes when during a game, Lance ends up getting injured and is forced to take on the quarterback position, which ends up benefiting him as he starts to gain respect from people in the town, the cheerleader Jules, played by Ally Larder, who ends up wanting to sleep with him and even gets himself a scholarship to college. But all of this gets put to the test when the coach, who has been emotionally manipulating the players, ends up forcing Knox to win the big game, otherwise he'll ruin his chances at college. So now Mox needs to basically get the team on their feet and have them win the game. Will Mox be able to get the team in order to win the game, or will the coach ruin his future? Now, what Varsity Blues does well with in the story department is being from the viewpoint on how even Little League football players who are just playing for their high school football games are still viewed in a way like gods. In a town that looks at football as a sort of rite of passage to becoming a man, and how becoming a superstar, and even in young leagues, changes your image. I think the film does a great job exploring those areas. But another place I feel the film does well with is in the main character of Mox. And I like how the film makes you identify with him even when he becomes famous. Because he still stands by his morals. He doesn't push his friends to the side for new ones. He doesn't even find himself using the fame to his advantage or forgetting that he does have family and friends. Nah, he stands by those morals, which I appreciate. I get annoyed by that trend in movies where the main character suddenly changes and puts fame before the family and the people who were there for him all the way. As I feel in some movies, it makes the main character unlikable and hard to root for. And I get that happens in real life, but at the same time, this is a movie. I want someone to stand by when I watch these films. I don't want to follow unlikable people. So it's nice that the movie does that with the Knox character, but also you really emphasize with him and the struggle he's going through, whether it's him dealing with the fame or the struggle he's dealing with his loved ones or the moments dealing with John Voight and his trash. Those moments are really well handled. And the comedy, for the most part, I think it's really funny. It's definitely raunchy, so if that's not your thing, you're not going to like it because there's a lot of moments with some very tasteless but funny humor that may offend soccer moms or even people who are very sensitive. It's all in this film, in particular a moment with the teacher and how she's also a stripper at night. There's a scene where she's stripping with the guys before the big game, or the moments with Scott Caan and his drunken outbursts and stealing the police car. They can be funny. There is one problem I do have with the comedy, and that has a lot to do with the spacing between the comedy and the emotional moments. As there's some moments when it does feel like the comedy and the emotional moments aren't spaced far enough. So the comedy kind of feels like it comes at the wrong time, and it kind of feels like in moments where it makes the tone feel like a tonal whiplash. And not all the humor works. There's a lot of emphasis with the Ron Lester character and him puking and saying stupid stuff like, "Oh, I puked in the washer machine. There's some hot dogs in there." Granted, his character goes through an arc, which I will talk about, and I did like that. But those particular moments were just more gross than funny, and I really felt those could have been reined in a little bit more. That being said, the moments that are funny can be really funny. But for the most part, I thought the story was an interesting combination of football drama and comedy. Now, in terms of directing, I gotta say, the directing here is really well done. And I'm surprised I'm even saying that because Brian Robbins isn't a director I would expect to get a film like this directed as well as it is. Because you look at his filmography, it's the Nickelodeon guy, the guy who did Good Burger and Kenan and Kel. These are not heavy, dramatic sort of movies that you would see him taking on a film like this compared to those. But he surprised me with how well he does in this movie. He does a great job with his shots, in particular showcasing the small town that the film is set in with this Sweet Home Alabama sort of look. Like the opening combined with James Van Der Beek's narration. It's a very nice looking town that they picked. Nice country sort of view to it with some of the shots. The fact that some of the football scenes were actually shot on an actual football field, I gotta give them props for that. It really adds to the energy of the scenes. So you really feel like you're watching an actual game. The fact that it's some of the actors involved in the play really brings those scenes to life. And it definitely shows Brian Robbins' directing talents when working in moments like that were nowhere near present to this level in Good Burger. Okay, it's not on the level of, say, The Program or even The Waterboy, but for what we get some impressive directing in those moments. You get great shots of people getting tackled, so there's a sense of, oh, that's gotta hurt. Or the shots of the people running in the game, and so you see the cleats digging in the ground, so you get a sense that these guys are giving it their all. And just the aftermath that he did, like the shots of the guys laying on the ground saying, my back, my leg, all this stuff, you really feel like you're watching an actual game. And with that, what he was able to get out of the cast members in those moments, and the fact that a few of them actually got hurt, really show how strong and involved they were. And the fact that they didn't resort to stunt doubles, really, I gotta commend them for that. I respect these guys for really being like, okay, we're making a football movie, but we're gonna play it. So the football scenes are great. But what really surprised me is the moments focusing on emotion and them at the center stage, because you have moments involving John and Knox emotionally clashing and him emotionally abusing the team, or the moments with Knox dealing with where the game has taken him. And those are dealt with and shot really maturely, so you're allowed to let those moments sink in that are supposed to be emotional. He doesn't feel like he's shooting it in the way of like one of his sitcom shows, and they feel like an actual movie. And so, yeah, I'm really surprised with that, being this is the guy who did Good Burger, which was more bouncy and in your face with the jokes. So to go from that to this, I gotta say is really impressive. So credit where credit is due for Brian for stepping out of his comfort zone. Even with the moments that involve comedy, either hitting or missing, they aren't badly directed, in all honesty, and they hit the right marks. They just really could have been spread out a bit more, like I said earlier. But overall, I think they created a fine-looking film. But of course, you can't have anybody playing football but the actors themselves. And not only they played football, but they're played football with their acting. So how did they do? Starting off, I think James Vanderbeek does great as the lead. I thought he did a great job playing this good-natured boy next door who is just trying to make it through life in a town that has football on its mind, and they're pushing him to be the one who basically is the next football player that will go big, even though he's just like, I just want to go to college. I thought he did that very well. I thought he did a great job showcasing that he's going through the struggle of being in the shadow of the quarterback, and just all around, James gave him this charm that I don't think anyone else could have pulled off. I know some people pick on his accent. I didn't think it sounded bad. I think he plays great off the other actors around him too, Paul Walker and A.B. Smart especially. So in that instance, I got to give it to James there. And if it was him playing football, I got to give him some credit because I thought he did great there. Or if it's the stunt double, kudos to the stunt doubles. But along with that, I also appreciate they didn't go the route of him being a nerdy kid and being into football, but already on the team and already having some history with the game. So it makes it believable that he would take on the quarterback mantle. And just all around, you really start to feel the pressure that he goes through of becoming this hotshot and how he kind of wants it, but also doesn't want it. And I think the script worked to his favor in those areas. Amy Smart, she does well for what she's given. There is some moments where her character does come across a bit stuck up, especially in the moments where you see him sticking to his morals and she's jumping to conclusions that he's cheating on her without giving him time to explain himself. It made it at times hard for me to like her, so at times the character could be unlikable. But eventually she does come around, so I can't fault her there. I just wish, though, that they wrote her a bit more understanding and a bit less stuck up. But it's not her fault, though. She's played well for what she's given, and the moments between her and Knox are well done for what they have to do. So overall, fine on her part. Ally Larder, though, all I could say is arf arf, because she is smoking hot in this movie. And I'll be honest, the country accent makes her sexier. Yeah, I said it. But at the beginning, you think the character's going to be the slutty cheerleader, especially with the infamous whipped cream bikini. One of the highlights of the film, I might add. But the film pulls the carpet out from under you, and she avoids becoming that character and having the love triangle arc that you think a film like this would have. I thought that was a nice change of pace, and Ally does great in that part. She's not in the film a whole lot, but when she is there, it's a sight to behold. One of the few that actually did stick out to me was Paul Walker as Lance. He too is not in the film too much, but the moments he's on screen, there is a sense of likability and middle-minded presence, and how he shares that among the characters made me like him. And I like the fact that his character's not the typical jock or the bully. He's already friends with the guys, and they share this connection among the fact they're playing football together, so there's a sense of a brotherly bond, almost kin to real-life players, and Paul delivers that side really well. Another person I gotta give it to is Ron Lester as Billy Bob, because this is leagues above his performance in Good Burger, which wasn't even a character, but I gotta say, at the beginning, I wasn't liking him because he starts off as the butt of every joke because he's fat. I almost wrote him as a con. But towards the end of the movie, this is another instance where the movie pulls the carpet out from under you. It gives more of a sense of depth to his character where you see him having a back injury, yet the coach still forces him to play. You see him crying because they end up losing a game and he feels he failed the team. I felt Ron Lester did a great job taking a character that in any movie would remain the butt of fat jokes and still be made fun of. But here, he plays it as a character who has a sense of depth and he wants to do the best he can for his team. And you see him drinking when he gets kicked off the team and shooting the statues. I thought he did that really well. And just how he was able to deliver the emotion in those scenes. I thought he did great. Speaking of the coach, John Voight also stands out, besides Ally Larder's whipped cream bikini, as this really spiteful, manipulative coach who you see pushing the team around and threatening to ruin their life unless they win. I thought that was delivered excellent. John really has this whole when no one is around, I'll be a dick to you approach that really gives the film the serious edge that you wouldn't think a film like this would have. And he delivers that really well. Other actors, you got Scott Kidd as one of the players who keeps getting into high-speed chases with the police. He gave me a good laugh. Tony Paretsky as this teacher who we find out at night is a stripper and may have a thing for some of the kids. Told you this wasn't going to be PC. Thomas F. Duffy as Knox's dad, who is very passionate about the sport of football. Richard Lineback, who is actually the deputy in Friday 13th Part 5, and among others. So there's some solid actors in this movie, and each of them do well for what they're given. And nothing great. I will say there was a comedy I saw last month, Jawbreaker, which I found funnier. That had better acting, but overall I thought the film was solid in the acting department. But overall, this is a solid comedy that I think any football fan looking for a raunchy comedy combined with football will get a kick out of. It has its problems. I touched on a few, but the last one, I gotta say, is the ending. Not necessarily the game itself, because the game itself has an awesome final. And there's some great soundtracks in the film as well, especially on the ending. But the game itself, after that, it feels like it ends very abruptly. Because we never get an ending that explains where the characters are. They say where they are, but we never know if they're resting on their morals that they learned throughout the film. Granted, it's told to us through narration, like I said, but it's not showing, and it feels like it's breaking the law of show, don't tell. And it would have been much better had they showed that at the end. It would have made the ending more rewarding for our heroes. We don't even see what happens to John Voight after the group stands up to him. He just walks off and is never seen again. So it never feels like the movie goes out of its way to show what happened after or make the characters feel like they went somewhere at the end after they went the distance. So I think that could have been better. But that's the only con I could think of. Because bottom line, while uneven in some areas of the comedy and the drama, Varsity Blues is a funny, dramatic, and surprisingly well-directed take on high school football and the struggles teens go through. So really, I definitely recommend you check out Varsity Blues. It's a really funny movie. Even I would just be wary of some of the comedy because it can be a bit un-PC. But if that's your thing, you're going to have a great time with this movie. So when it comes down to it, I give Varsity Blues an 8.9 out of 10. And it deserves it. Therefore gets the unexaggerated seal of approval. Definitely one to check out if you're into football and raunchy comedies. But yeah, that's my review for Varsity Blues. And next time I will do a review on She's All That. That will be coming along the way. And then I'll have a review of Payback coming. And I'm going to try and beat Blood Omen, so you'll be getting a review on that soon. I'm going to film the last few parts with actually a couple friends of mine. But for right now, I'll see you guys later. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Varsity Blues. Did you guys have a good time with it? Did you find it funny? I'd love to know you guys' thoughts. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.